Hello, I'm Jamie Rylett. Welcome to this special Corona edition of Yin Yin. So we're not going to be using this, don't worry. This is going to be a class where we're trying to move away from the negativity that is Corona, this dark cloud overhanging us. We're going to look to have a lot of fun over the next 75 minutes. Hopefully change our mind state, start feeling a lot more relaxed, a lot less anxious. So all you'll need for this practice is a bottle of gin and something to drink it with, maybe a shot glass, maybe a glass, or if you're the sort of person who drinks directly from a bottle, feel free to do that too. You don't have to have gin either. If there's another drink that you want to use, feel free to use anything, as long as it's really not a stimulant. I wouldn't recommend coffee or any kind of energy drink, but up to you. Let me know what you decide. We're going to keep this very, very basic. We're not going to be using a lot of props today. If you're at home, you might not have props. I've got props here at the studio. You might be thinking, Jamie, you shouldn't be using props with this coronavirus. We're not using them. But I was here early and I've specially customized the props using the only things you can get in supermarkets. So these are now corona proof, and this is all we'll need. So if you've got 2 blocks and a bolster, you just need something where you can create this kind of shape. So you could use a bed, you could put your feet on a chair, a sofa. We just need, for our final pose, some way of elevating your feet. So it could even be one of those 90s style Reebok steps. So there's no scientific evidence behind what I just said. I don't know if this is corona proof. So take any medical advice I give you in the same way you take medical advice from Donald Trump, with a big tablespoon of salt. So plan for the next 75 minutes. We're going to start off by drinking our gin. So maybe come to a kneeling position. And the way to approach a gin is like 2 cats approaching each other on a garden fence. So we want to move slowly so nobody gets bitten. And you should never shake a gin. If you shake a gin, you're just going to get this strong alcoholic aroma rather than that smell of the botanicals. So it's feeling free to sip your gin, or I'll give you a bit more information about what we're going to be doing. So generally when I'm doing these Yoga Evolved and MoreYoga collaborations, we go on and we learn more about the history of gin. We actually do some gin testing. We go to the place where the gin's made. So we're not going to be doing any of that today. We're just going to be doing asana and not talking too much about the gin. But we'll say the reason we are choosing gin for today's class is it's locally produced. This was made in Camden. And there's a lot of health benefits to drinking gin. It's full of antioxidants, which is good for your immune system, something people are talking about a lot at this time. I wouldn't recommend that you start heavily drinking gin to combat corona. That's probably not a good idea. But it was developed as a cure for kidney disease, so it is good for your kidneys and liver, believe it or not. Again, I think that's in moderation. It's got anti-aging properties. I'm actually 65 years old. I drink this every morning, so it seems to be working. It's good for your bones, your joints, a lot of health benefits. And if we're having just this much, it's going to help us hopefully relax a bit more into these postures. So one of the things that's very controversial about Yin Yin is mixing yoga and alcohol. So a lot of people would disagree with that idea. And it is true if you go to Rishikesh, which is said to be the birthplace of yoga, where Shiva lived in the mountains. You can't get alcohol anywhere, you can't get meat anywhere, you can't get hash everywhere. You can buy hash off holy men at the side of the road. They use hash in different Kundalini ceremonies. So I think that this aversion to alcohol is a lot more of a cultural thing than a spiritual thing. And I always make the joke that if yoga started in London, and rather than using hash in these ceremonies, we might be using gin. So we will begin. You've got time to finish your gin if you haven't already, or our first stand will allow you to finish it. So we're going to come into toe stand. So I'm going to be timing out all of these postures. Yin is a very slow practice. We're going to hold these poses for time. So the first pose, we're just simply curling our toes under, sitting back on your heels. So Yin is a simple practice, but simple doesn't always mean easy. And this is a perfect example of that. If this is already getting a little bit too much, you might decide to come up to a kneeling position, take some of the weight off your heels. If it's really too much, you could bring your hands down to the ground. If you're upright, we can start to work into our upper body too. So we're going to take our right hand behind our back and then let your left ear fall towards the left shoulder. So we can be feeling a stretch in the side of the neck. You can use your left hand for that little bit of extra weight. But remember that this is a practice of allowing, not forcing. So we're certainly not pulling the head down here. So this area we're working into, the traps, is an area that many of us do store a lot of tension. If you're overhead pressing in the gym, if you're working on handstands, you're probably storing tension here. So this is one way to relieve that tension. Hopefully take your mind off your toes at the same time. Now we're going to remove our hand and take the opposite hand to the base of the spine. Let your ear fall to the opposite shoulder. And again, option to use that hand for that little bit of extra weight. So as we work into our traps, into the side of our neck, you might have noticed that we're also doing something to our feet by now. We're opening our toes, strengthening our ankles, and maintaining the flexibility of our feet, which for many of us is literally the furthest thing from our mind. But with anything in the human body, you either use it or lose it, and we don't want to lose this dexterity in the feet. It's very important for our sense of balance. So using your hand, we return the head to the center. We have another hand position. We're going to bring our hands into prayer, but behind the back. So if this isn't possible, you could turn the prayer down to the ground, makes it a little bit easier. You could hold your elbows, you could even hold your hand. If none of those options are possible, just fake it as best you can. Just concentrate on rolling your shoulders back. So we're trying to avoid what Kelly Starrett calls the douchebag shoulder position. So when you see guys walking around like this, we're trying to do the opposite. So we're going to open up the chest, roll back the shoulders. So the Taoists have a saying, open toes, open mind. No idea what that means, but hopefully that's of some comfort to you for the rest of this posture. And we're moving into our last 10 minutes here. 10 seconds. And that's time. So bring your hands down, turn your feet over. Take a nice counter pose, just rock back on your feet the opposite way. A lot of people say this is not a nice counter pose, but it is a counter pose. We're going to make our way back to child's pose. So taking your toes together, take the knees nice and wide, start to walk your hands forward. So nice and relaxed here, finding that passive lengthening of the spine. Yin is a very slow practice. It doesn't really get much faster than this. We're not going to flow through different postures. Instead, throughout, we'll hold these postures for time. And that time can be anything from 2 minutes going all the way up to 20 minutes. In this practice, we're going to be working in the 2 to 5 minute range. Now start to walk your hands to the right side of the room. So for most of you, walking off of your mat. If we were in a class, I would generally say maybe even onto your neighbour's mat. But in these days of social distancing, hopefully that's not the case for you. But walking your hands as far to the right as you want to go. And maybe even taking your left hand on top of the right hand. So you're feeling a stretch through the left side of the torso. If you're practicing today, best really to follow my words rather than follow my actions. I'll be demonstrating every posture. I'll be staying in some poses with you for time, but I might be coming out of some of the postures early. Just Start to walk your hands back to the center. And then start to go the opposite way. So walking hands to the left. Again, once you've gone as far as you'd like to go, take your right hand on top of the left hand. So as a basic guide to this practice, we always want to come into every posture to an appropriate depth. Some people talk about finding your edge or playing your edge, going to that place of first resistance. But we just want to go somewhere that we feel something, but at a moderate intensity. An intensity we can hold for time. We pause and we start to observe what happens. Maybe the body starts to open up. Maybe we get invited to move deeper into the posture. Start to walk your hands back to the center. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the body starts to tell you that it's time to back off. So it's always okay to modify this practice. From here, we're going to make our way back to a kneeling position. We're going to prepare to come into melting heart. So hips above your knees. We're going to start to walk our hands forward until your forehead comes down to the mat. So you might stay here, or if you're starting to feel particularly open, you might bring your chest and chin down to the mat. So we're moving out of that passive forward fold, moving into a back bend for the upper and mid back, and also a nice pose for opening up the shoulders. For many of us, the area of the shoulders is an area of tension and restriction. So it's usual that you might start to feel some signs of discomfort in this posture. In this practice, we are trying to find comfort within discomfort, but it's also very important that we know the difference between discomfort and pain. So as a basic guide, if you feel anything today as sharp or stabbing, if anything feels electrical in nature, like a tingling or a pins and needles like sensation, they could all be cues that maybe you should back off. However, if it's the opposite here, if you're feeling the body's really starting to open up, you might start to move down onto your chest and chin. Remember that for some people that's not going to be comfortable for the neck. So let sensation be your guide throughout this practice. We're over halfway through here. So if you are feeling those signals of pain, you might start coming down onto your elbows and forearms, or taking your arms wider. You might bring one arm in as a pillow. Keep switching throughout the posture. You might bring both arms in as a pillow. So we're really trying to move away from any ideas of no pain, no gain in this practice. That might be useful for a CrossFit WOD or a marathon. It's not going to serve you in this practice. So we do have our own saying in Yin Yoga, no strain, no gain. So we do want to feel something. So if you're feeling this more as a constant ache or a dull, tugging sensation, that's actually what we're looking for. So as Bernie Clark says, we're always looking for sensation, but that sensation should never be sensational. We're coming into our last 15 seconds here. And slowly using your hands to start to raise the chest, bring the knees closer together. Create a bit of space so you can rest your hands by your feet, palms facing the sky. Taking child's pose again, taking our spine through the opposite range of motion, moving out of that back bend, moving into that nice, gentle, passive forward fold again. Sliding yourself forward onto your stomach, we're going to come into Sphinx pose. So bring your elbows underneath your armpits, coming into another back bend. You can reduce your back bend further by taking your elbows further forward. You could take a really relaxed, chilled out version of this posture, rest your chin in your hands. You might decide to go the opposite way. You might decide to make this a little bit more stressful. Maybe you start to bring your feet in towards your heels. If you're really not feeling it, you could come all the way up into seal pose, so turning your hands out like a seal's flippers, pressing down through the palms, raising the chest. So as long as you're taking your spine through extension here rather than flexion, where we spend most of our days, always hunched over desks, cycling, driving, checking how many new followers we have. As long as you're doing the opposite of that, you're getting the benefits from this pose, so you don't necessarily need to do more. The best version of every posture is that version where you're feeling it at a moderate intensity, you can hold for time. Always looking for that Goldilocks position, not too hot, not too cold. As we come to around halfway in this posture, you might decide to experiment with the position of your legs. For some people, taking the legs a little bit wider reduces compression around the hips and allows them to come a little bit higher into the back bend. For other people, taking the legs closer together is going to have that same effect. For other people, neither of those options is going to make any difference at all. So just underlining, this is a very individual practice. Everyone's coming into this today with a completely different toolkit. So what works for one body type is not going to feel good for another. So again, letting sensation be your guide. Moving into our last 50 seconds here. And wherever you are, return to the standard Sphinx. So lower your feet to the ground, lower your elbows to the ground. Pause here for a moment. And then lower yourself all the way to the ground. Fold your forearms. Just rest the forehead on the back of your forearms. Just take a moment here. And slowly push your way back to child's pose. Just taking our spine through that opposite range of motion again. Nice counter pose after any back bend. And making your way to a simple seated position. We're going to straighten both legs so we're in staff pose. Keep this right leg straight. Step the left foot over the top. So we're in half shoelace here. If you're already feeling this in the outer hip, you might stay here. Otherwise, maybe bring this heel in towards your glute. Try and shuffle yourself around. Get your knees roughly into one line. Very important that the bum stays grounded here. So maybe you even start with your hands behind you. If this feels very comfortable, you want to go a bit further, you might bring hands to the side. You might even start to walk your hands forward. If you do come forward though, still keeping those glutes grounded. There's no knee openers in Yin Yoga, so anything that we're feeling in the knee is another warning sign that maybe we should back off. So just reverse engineer those steps. Maybe bring the hands back behind you. Maybe you even straighten that bottom leg again. So in every posture, what we're always interested in is what's stopping me. Everyone always wants to go to the absolute maximum. We're only really interested in what it is that's preventing us from doing so. So it's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be tension or compression. So tension is what we're working on in this practice. So that's the tightness in the muscles, in the connective tissue, the fascia. Something we can start to combat in this practice. Compression is bone pressing against bone. So if that's what it is that's restricting you, then no amount of yoga is going to help that. That's something you can never change. Even if you drink a bottle of gin before every practice, that's not going to help. From here now, we've got a choice. If you're feeling very relaxed and you just want to stay where you are, feel free. Otherwise, we can start to work into the upper body again. You could lift the chest. Imagine that you're high-fiving two people, wearing gloves obviously. And we're going to take our left arm under right elbows together, palms together for eagle arms. Raise the elbows in line with your face. Slide the shoulders away from the ears. Start to push the arms out away from the body. You could stay here or you could fold forward. Start to wrap the elbows around your knees. So it really depends on what you're emphasizing. If you're emphasizing shoulder opening and trying to raise the elbows, push the arms away. If you want to start working more into those outer hips, then you're folding forward. Last few seconds here. And release the hands, bring them behind you, release the legs. Maybe massage out the calves, maybe let your knees fall from side to side in a windscreen wiper motion. We're going to come into our next posture, caterpillar pose. So we take our legs straight again, like we're setting up for shoelace, only this time keeping them here, tucking chin to chest, folding forward. So maybe you're taking a hold of your feet, maybe your palms are facing the sky. Maybe if you're really struggling to fold forward, maybe taking a hold of your block, sitting on the edge of a block to allow you to tilt your pelvis. If you don't have a block, you could use a cushion, a book, anything that just helps you to elevate and start to tilt the pelvis forward. If it's really, really too much for the back of your legs, if you're feeling this at the back of your knee or your hamstrings are very, very tight, you could place that underneath your legs and keep a bend in the knees, or maybe even place in a bolster, keeping that bend in the knees here. So we're going to be here for time, so we're trying to work at a moderate intensity. Much better to be in the pose at that moderate intensity for time, rather than a very extreme version and then coming out of the posture. So in Yin Yoga, we don't mind about rounding of the back. We're happy to take the stresses into the connective tissues of the back. If you feel like you spend a lot of your days rounding and that's very, very uncomfortable, then feel free to try and hinge more at the hips. If you're taking that option, you're probably going to feel this more in the hamstrings again. So if that is the case, maybe you're taking a bend in the knee or using the props. We're halfway through here. So if you're someone who does a lot of yoga, probably do a lot of passive forward folding already. This might be a pose where you can simply lay on your legs, not really feel anything here, and try and push yourself deeper and deeper. Maybe you even open the legs and start taking your chest down to the floor. But really, if you're already doing that much passive stretching to the hamstrings, maybe a better idea here is to back off a little bit. We don't want to risk any hamstring attachment injuries. It should be a restorative, rejuvenating practice and not going to our absolute maximum, looking for that middle way, that Goldilocks position. So another benefit of this posture, according to Iyengar, is it's a cure for impotency. So if any of the guys watching this get that result from it, please leave it in the comments, let me know, as we come into our last 30 seconds here. Going to start to use the hands now, start to push the weight back into your hips, start to slowly raise yourself up. Again, maybe taking any movements that feel good for you here, maybe massaging out the calves, anything that feels good. Sometimes it's nice to add a little bit of movement after a prolonged period of stillness. Then we're going to keep our legs in the same position and take our shoelace pose on the opposite side. So left leg straight this time, right foot steps over the top. Maybe we stay here in half shoelace, or maybe we bring this heel in towards the glute, shuffle around, try and bring the knees into one line as best you can. So same as the previous side, hands may start behind, you may bring hands to the side, you might even start to walk the hands forward, but definitely keeping the weight back in your hips. So one of the interesting things about this practice is that we start to discover that we're not symmetrical. So nobody's body is the same from left to right. Your hips could be different shapes, the depth of your socket, the curvature of your bones. So it makes perfect sense that these poses are not going to look and feel the same from side to side. And if we do have this quest for perfect symmetry, that could lead to frustration and the worst case injury. Exact opposite of what we're trying to achieve here. This should be a restorative, rejuvenating practice. So as I was saying on the previous side, we could be being restricted by bone pressing into bone. And that's not something we're ever going to change. So as an old yin teacher of mine, Norman Blair, used to say, the most important flexibility is the flexibility between your ears. So try and bring that approach into every posture. In a moment, if you took it on the other side, we're going to have that option to come into eagle arms, so raising the chest. Imagine you're pushing away two walls, and take this right arm under the left. Elbows together, palms together as best you can. Start to raise the elbows in line with your face. Slide the shoulders away from your ears. Start to push the arms out away from the body. So internal and external rotation of the shoulders. Really good pose for anyone who works in an office, not to wow your colleagues with your yoga prowess, but to undo that keyboard syndrome. Into our last 20 seconds. Maybe breathing into any areas of tension, releasing that tension with your exhalation. And release your arms, bring your hands behind you, release your legs, take any movements again that feel good, maybe that massaging out of the calves, maybe the knees, falling from side to side. I'm going to make our way onto our back for Pentacle pose. So moving onto your back, taking a big star or X shape. Legs are wide, arms are wide. Just taking a moment here to observe the rebound. So the rebound, for anyone who's new to Yin Yoga, it's basically a mindful timeout. So nothing to stretch in a rebound, nowhere to be, no problems to solve. Our only aim is to be calm and present, connecting to any sensations in the body. Be paying particular attention to your hips. Bringing your knees into the chest, take a nice gentle rock from side to side. And then maybe taking your feet up to the sky and just hinging to a seated position. And just watching while I show you the next posture, because it's one that people sometimes get confused with. So we're going to take our left leg up to the sky. We're going to let this leg fall across the body. We can make a pillow with our bicep or our hand. And an important part of this pose is to press the toes of this foot into the mat, that rear right leg into the mat. Lift and turn your hip, place your thigh flush against the mat. This leg we can walk higher if you want to, but the main thing is to bend this back knee, reach back and take a hold of your foot, maybe the outer foot, maybe the inner foot. Just start to bring your heel in towards your glute. So cat pulling its tail posture. So I'll talk you through that pose now because it can be a little bit confusing. So we're on our back, we're taking the left leg up to the sky. This leg is falling across the body to your right. Make a pillow with your hand or bicep. Press the toes of the right foot into the mat. Lift and turn your thigh. Option of walking your left foot higher. You can even keep your knee bent. Reaching back, taking a hold of your foot. So maybe spending the first few moments of this posture playing with different positions, holding your foot in different ways, bringing the heel at different angles, and try and find that sweet spot. Try and find stillness. And if you're struggling to reach back and hold your foot, you can use a strap. If you're at home and you don't have a strap, a belt, a piece of string, whatever you have, you could use. Even a rolled up towel would do the job. So we're aiming to feel this posture in the top of that bent leg. Send the hip flexor, quadricep. For many of us, this is an area of tightness. Most of us spend our days seated, actually shortening our hip flexors. So when we come to start to lengthen them again, as we're doing here, this can feel quite intense. So remember, in this practice, we always have that option to back off. Or maybe you start to breathe into those areas of tension. Maybe you even imagine that you're inhaling a healing white light directly into that area. And on your exhalation, you exhale all of that tightness, all of that restriction. Coming into our last minute here. And slowly release your foot down to the mat. Slowly make your way onto your back for Pentacle pose. In another moment in that big star shape. Another moment of mindfulness. So many different definitions for mindfulness. Maybe the simplest is pure presence. That's just what we're looking for here in the rebound. Now preparing to take cat pulling its tail on the opposite side. So staying on your back. This time lifting the opposite leg up to the sky. Let the leg fall across your body. Make a pillow using your hand or bicep. And then the important part, pressing the toes of this rear leg into the floor. Lift and turn your hip so your thigh is flush against the mat. We could walk this foot higher if we want to, but the important thing is bending the back leg, reaching back, taking a hold of your foot, and bringing the heel in towards your glutes. So this is the posture where we tend to see the most variation in terms of experience. For some people this will feel very, very intense. Some people will not even be able to reach back and take a hold of the foot without the use of a strap. For other people, they'll have their heel touching their glute and they won't really be feeling much here. Remember, this is a practice of patience and non-attachment. So maybe now, just 1 minute into the pose, maybe those sensations are not that strong. Maybe in another 2 minutes, those sensations have increased. And also, we're not being attached to sensation. So each pose will feel different. Not every pose should feel like toe stand. Just by being in this shape, there's lots of benefits for the body on an energetic level. So the three main influences behind Yin Yoga are Taoist yoga from Hong Kong, Western anatomy, and Chinese meridian theory. And in that theory, we're saying that all of these poses act in a similar way to acupuncture. So sending qi through specific pathways known as meridians to nourish the organs of the body. So we're not using needles here. We refer to this as acupressure. And Sarah Powers, who coined the name Yin, refers to the effect we have after a Yin practice as acu-bliss. And even if you don't really buy into the Chinese meridian theory part of this practice, just by being in these different shapes, we have different sensations to focus our mind on, which helps us to treat every posture almost as a mini meditation. Coming into our last minute here now. And slowly allow your foot to return to the mat. Start to make your way onto your back for Pentacle pose. So legs wide, arms wide. Taking another moment in the rebound. Noticing what you're feeling here. Maybe now you're feeling more balanced in the rebound from just a few moments ago. Maybe it's a different sensation. Maybe it's a sensation of energy flowing through the body. Maybe it's a feeling of openness within the hips. Maybe it's an emotional release. It's said that we store emotions in the hips, issues in the tissues. So maybe now you're feeling a sense of joy, a sense of sadness, frustration, anger. All of these emotions can arise. And part of this practice is just to accept whatever comes up for what it is. Just part of the practice. Without trying to control this experience, just completely letting go. Bringing your knees into the chest, start to take a gentle rock from side to side. We're going to keep our left knee in and take your right ankle onto the left thigh. So we're creating a triangular shape between the legs. Reach your right hand through, left hand around the outside. Take a hold of your hamstring for eye of the needle pose. So you could stay here. You might decide to reach further and take a hold of your shin. If you wanted to try and flex your feet to avoid any kind of ankle twist, that would be an option. You might decide to point the toes of the left foot down towards the mat to increase the sensations in your outer hip. Those sensations may already be a bit too strong. You might bring the sole of the left foot down to the mat. Or if you're not really feeling this, you might bring your left knee closer to your chest, or maybe even slide your right ankle down closer to your hip bone. So again, numerous different options. The best option as always is that option where you're feeling it at a moderate intensity. So the same for this practice is always, if you're feeling it, you're doing it. If you're doing it, you don't necessarily need to do any more. It's a very yang attitude, and we're trying to avoid being yang within our yin practice. Coming towards halfway on this side. Last 30 seconds here. And release whatever grip you have. Bring the knees into the chest. Take a gentle rock from side to side, or any movement that feels good for you again. We're preparing for happy baby pose. So holding your outer feet or ankles, soles of the feet face the sky. Start to bring the knees down into the armpits. If you're not really feeling that, you might start to hold your inner feet or inner ankles. Start to take your knees wider. If you're really not feeling it, you might start to take your legs as wide apart as possible. So we're aiming to feel this in that inner thigh, in that inner groin area. So if this is already becoming a bit too much, you might bring the soles of your feet together. This is one of those poses that, for many people, quickly becomes quite intense. When we have so much time in each posture, we really get to work on treating this practice as an exercise in mental toughness. So much of this practice is mental. Now, just past a minute in the pose, the mind already might be telling you that it doesn't want to be here anymore, it would rather be doing something else. And when we can stay in the posture when our mind is telling us it would rather be elsewhere, we're really working to build our resolve. And we can carry this over into other areas of our life, way beyond the mat. We start to realize that we're not every thought that comes into our head unless we let that thought take control. So if you do find the mind running away, start to bring it back to the breath. The breath is like a retreat center that's open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So try and check yourself in for around another 70 seconds now. Last couple of breaths now. And release whatever grip you have. Bring the knees back into the chest again. Again, take any movement that feels good for you. Maybe you're circling your knees, maybe you're rocking from side to side. Whatever feels beneficial now. And preparing to take our eye of the needle pose on the opposite side. So right leg in, left ankle onto the right thigh. Again, we should have this triangle between the legs. Reach the left hand through, right hand round the outside, taking a hold of your hamstring. So all of those options from the previous side apply. You might decide to reach further and take a hold of your shin. It could be flexing the feet, pointing the toe, bringing the foot down to the ground, sliding the ankle closer to your hip bone. But remember, we're not being attached to recreating the shape from the previous side. It's really trying to treat this practice more like two dancers working in unison, and the mind and body as two wrestlers, with the mind trying to force the body into shapes it doesn't want to be in. Inside our last 45 seconds here. And release whatever grip you have. Bring knees into the chest again. Again, take any movement that feels good for you here. Maybe that rocking motion or anything else. And then we're going to return to Pentacle pose. And spend another moment here in a rebound. Legs wide, arms nice and wide. Preparing now to come into a reclining twist. So bring the knees into your chest. Maybe take your arms wide and bring the feet down to the ground as if you're going to come into a bridge pose. And do lift the hips, but just ever so slightly, move them slightly to the left. Place them down and then bring the knees together above your waist. So you should feel a little bit unbalanced here. We're going to let the knees fall to the right hand side. So maybe you stay here in the twist, or maybe you customize your twist. You could wrap one leg over the other in that twisted root formation. You could keep your arms wide. If you prefer to take them diagonal, then that's an option. If you like to take a more cactus position, taking a bend in each elbow, that's an option too. And the position of your head is changeable and optional. You could be looking towards your knees here to target your left shoulder. You could keep your head neutral. You could turn your head away from the knees, targeting more your upper back. Whatever option you decide, just make sure it's one that allows you to find complete comfort and relaxation. So maybe even closing your eyes or softening the gaze and start to really sink into your twist. Let the posture do all of the work. And if you do start to feel any signs of discomfort, maybe that tingling feeling in the hands, listen to your body. Bring the hands down alongside your hips or rest them on top of your ribs. Keeping your knees as they are, reach the left hand across the body to join the right. Pause on your right hand side for a moment. And then when you're ready, making your way onto your back. Taking another moment in a neutral spine position. Just maybe a mini corpse pose, maybe the soles of the feet stay on the ground. Just taking a moment here in the center. And we're going to prepare to go the opposite way. So again, lift the hips slightly, move them slightly off center to the right. Arms could be wide or any of those other options. Bring the knees together above your waist. Let the knees fall to the left hand side. And maybe staying here, or maybe spending a moment to customize, trying those different options, playing with position of legs, of arms, of head. Again, looking for that place of comfort and looking for stillness. So one of the great things about Yin Yoga, as I said earlier, is it gives us the opportunity to start to find comfort within discomfort. It's also important that we're comfortable with comfort. So we don't always have to be forcing and striving, trying to do more, trying to push harder. We also need to find ways to let the body and mind take a break. And the more we focus on recovery, then the more we have to give in other areas of our life, whether that's a more yang yoga practice, other sports, business, your personal life. So try and use these last few postures to access that deep, restorative place of relaxation. Just try and completely let go. Just try and sink into your twist. And reaching your right hand across the body to join the left. Pause on your left hand side for a moment. And when you're ready, making your way onto your back. Pause in that neutral position again. And bringing the knees into your chest, take a gentle rock. And rock yourself to a seated position. So we're going to come into a pose called Stonehenge now. So we're going to use our props. If you've got blocks and bolsters, then set them up in this kind of formation. So blocks on their highest setting, and then taking your bolster across the top. So if your blocks are wrapped up in plastic bags, it might not be that great to set this up with, but we're looking for this kind of shape, like a pie shape, like a bridge. And then we're going to make our way onto our back and bring our hamstrings down over that bolster. So if you're using a sofa, a chair, a bed, just anything that you can put your feet up onto, and then shuffle your way back so your back is relatively flat. So your palms may face the sky here. You could bring one hand to your belly, one hand to your heart. Whatever option you choose here, again, just looking to ensure that you can find complete comfort and relaxation. So this is more of a restorative pose and a yin pose. So we're not really aiming to feel this in any particular area of the body. But by having our feet above the level of our heart, this is a really nice pose for reducing fatigue in the legs. And it should be a pose where we can really let go. There's no need to balance, no need to engage our muscles. Just completely relax. Just really sink into your mat. So if you're a very type A personality, postures like this may be the hardest poses. It may feel to you like we're doing nothing here, like we're wasting time. But actually in some postures it's when we do nothing that everything happens. So many of us spend our days in a constant state of fight or flight. When we can really let go, when we can completely relax, we're sending signals to our brain that everything's okay. We can start to move out of this state of fight or flight, this sympathetic dominance of the nervous system, and start to move into this state of rest and digest. So it may seem counterintuitive, but the more we can let go, the less we force and strive, the greater the benefits of this posture. And preparing now for our final posture, preparing for corpse pose. If you're very happy where you are, feel free to observe our final relaxation here on the henge. Otherwise, see if you can quietly make your way down and take any other comfortable position on your back. So maybe if you're still using your props, maybe you place the bolster directly under your knees. Maybe discarding props altogether and taking any other comfortable position on your back. Whatever option you take, becoming as still as you can, as soon as you can. Sliding shoulders away from your ears, turning palms to face the sky. Starting to find stillness. Finding stillness of the breath. Finding stillness of the body. Finding stillness of the mind. And every time the mind starts to wander, keep bringing it back to the sensations in your body. Keep bringing it back to the sensations of your breath. Slowly starting to bring some awareness back into your body by gently moving your fingers and toes. When you're ready, taking a big stretch through the whole body, taking your arms up overhead. And bringing the knees into your chest and turning onto your right hand side. Pausing here for a moment. Keeping the eyes closed, use your left hand to push your way up to a seated position. Bring the palms together in front of your chest. Gently bowing your head and bringing the fingertips to your forehead. Namaste.